Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
And now let's give a warm welcome through our souls to Alex from Canada, who, as I said earlier, consistently delivers a teaching, a sharing of the knowledge. And sometimes, as Mr. Kesh said when he came in before, that you touch on things that you're not even aware you're touching on. And they're very beautiful. So hopefully we can see more of the beauty as you continue to share the knowledge of creation and the Creator. So we welcome you, Alex.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And talk about sharing the beauty. Does anyone know how to get rid of the task line from Zoom? Because it's been infringing on the screen.
What line?
The task line at the bottom of the Zoom picture.
I don't really see it. The task line.
Yeah,
I don't see it on my screen. Anyone else see it?
You mean the one with share screen and record and live transcript? That one, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
You have to slide it over to the other screen. That's what happens on my system. We never figured it out. Flint never figured it out. He couldn't understand why the controls detach, as that's what's happening and appearing on another screen.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so he was never able to solve it on my computer. He just thought it was a glitch in the Zoom system or whatever. So you actually have to put your mouse on it and slide it over. And even though you do slide, I don't see it, but even though you do slide it over, sometimes it seems to pop back over to the screen you're sharing on. Why? I don't know. But you do have the screen. I don't see the controls you're referring to. All I see is you are viewing Alex's screen and view options.
Okay. So
but try to slide it over to the other screen if you have two screens.
I'll have to do that at a later time. But thanks for that advice. I'll explore that option, and maybe that'll help. As we learn more and more, we find out things that we don't know, and then we find out what we need to know. So we've come to what a lot of people say is a need-to-know basis, and they've slammed the door shut on that. So we're going to open that door, and that's what we're going to discuss about today. So I want to welcome everybody from the North American team to the North American Knowledge Teaching. And I want to extend a special welcome to the rest of the Americas and Europe and Asia and Australia and Africa to understand that this is actually an international team meeting. And it's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and I know Most of you are here because you have nothing better to do than talk about the new space technology as put together by Marin Tevkolkesh. And of course, that's why all these medallions here are showing that all of us are endeavoring to have science meet the soul of man for the purpose of peace. And what purpose is that? So we're always asking questions, and hopefully in the process of asking those questions, we not only get the answers that we want to hear, but the answers that we need to hear. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, Plasma Science Teaching. We are at the basic Earth space level. Today's subject is Gateway. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It is July the 3rd, 2022. This is the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. As mentioned before, this is for new knowledge seekers and for mature knowledge seekers. And the reason for that is because knowledge seekers become teachers, and teachers will teach new knowledge seekers who are coming down the road. And so what we've tried to do is create a pathway through a teaching series, an understanding series, a knowing series, an insight series. And now we're in the 8th Earth Space series. And frankly, all of these are basic teachings. So the reason for that is because we need to bridge the knowledge somehow. And most of us have done it the hard way. First of all, we've gone through many years of conventional physics. And then we've gone through thousands of hours of knowledge seekers workshops. So hopefully this series streamlines it a little bit and puts it more in layman's terms. And that's what we want to do. We want to relate more to our own environment. And it's not that we want to labor our physical existence, which is why we're talking about basic Earth space. It's because we don't understand the difference between physicality and the plasma reality. And so it's a natural tendency for us to lean back and rest on our physical understanding, because up until now, that's all we've had. And so we try and understand the plasma science from a physical perspective. Well, the problem has been that the physical perspective has also been skewed. And so when we say the physical perspective, it's not from your orientation as if you're the center of the universe. It's from understanding that our environment is where we are at this moment, and our environment at this moment is the Earth space. And then the question becomes, where is the rest of the space? And in order to find the rest of the space, we have to go there. But as everybody knows, before you go from here to there, you have to cross over the threshold. And usually there's a door or a gateway. So please enjoy the trip today, because what we are going to do is we're going to start crossing the universe and understand that in the books of Mr. Keshe, book number 1, The Universal Order of Creation of Matters, we think that's a source. And then our soul, which comes from the source, corresponds to the origin of the universe. But, you know, is the origin first or the creation of matters first? And this leads to a lot of confusion. And fortunately, we have the structure of light in between, which is the link. And we have to understand what this link is. But we have to understand that before we get to the link, there is a gateway between the soul and the link. There's another gateway between the source and the link. So unlike links in a chain, there are gateways which open and close. And so I've identified two gateways. And so when we look at the surface to volume ratios, and we have to look at a sphere, and we measure that mathematically with this pi thing, this 3.14 and a bit and a bit and a bit, which we keep fudging. We don't know what it is. But what we are saying is that there are two feeding dimensions. So we're looking at the surface and we're looking at the volume. And from that, we get our three feedback dimensions, right? And so as the observer, that means that we're not any of these dimensions. We're in some kind of fourth dimension. So to be in that fourth dimension and try and understand the three dimensions, we keep fudging things and not understanding that the creation of each dimension is the same and the rules are the same. So when we look at one plasma and we look at another plasma, you can bank on the relationship. And this is a problem in our physical reality, because when we talk about banks, we talk about money. And so that is the currency of our society. And that's what all of us focus on. But we seem to compromise our focus on money with our focus on life. And so we trade our life for our money. But we find that the currency of life is not money, but the adenosine triphosphate. And where does that come from? What bank is that? And so we really find that there's another currency, the PM ticks that travel through the universe, the currency of energy and motion. And these currencies are really earth-space currencies. And we all want a piece of the pie, don't we? But you know what? We already have that piece of pie. We just keep wanting other things and more things. So as we discussed, we all have a mission. And so our missions are based on schemes, and schemes can be small or large. And so based on the earth space rules, we like to have a business, because according to earth space rules, he who has the most wins. Well, congratulations to the winners. And sorry about the people in poverty, you know, sorry about your luck. You're just all a bunch of losers. And in fact, business doesn't even consider you part of the market, except as an ingenious scheme for those in poverty. We give you welfare, but a limited amount, unlike the universal energy, which is copious and ubiquitous and always there on demand. We only give you a limited amount to make sure that the money that you spend comes back to our business. And then, of course, when you're exhausted, then there's the funeral business. So all of us, you know, are trying to cope with this mission statement on our earth space. And so we go through this business positioning, but as I've outlined, you know, not only are we exchanging our lives for money, but we're exchanging our earth for money. And that is like really a bad deal. So what we don't understand is our ecosystemic positioning. So this is an important factor. And today we're going to discuss the gateway positioning. because that is going to realign our business and ecosystemic positioning. And that is going to modify our mission statement, you see, because unlike regular business practices, plasma feeding is where the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. Totally opposite to the way things are conducted in our society. The way we see this society is when we have two plasma fields coming together at a conflict point. And then, of course, that creates a conflict field, and which we call the theater of war, just kind of a euphemistic way of saying it's just a movie, but it's involves humanity. It involves everything that we are up to. And so fundamentally we say, well, there are two dimensions, so two forces come together. And the present science has created a flash, and the spiritual science has created a glow. And the indomitable spirit has created a glitter. But the universal community have created a shining example. What kind of example are we creating? How shining is it? So what we're driving at in terms of a point here, and there are 2 points that I want to make today, is to understand the principle of the twinity. In other words, there's a plasma of the electron and there's a plasma of the proton. And the interaction of these two plasmas is how energy moves. But these two plasmas work together. They create a marriage, which we call an atom. So an atom is a marriage between an electron and a proton plasma. So the atom itself is a plasma. And so neither one of these is a physicality. But somehow we're always in the pursuit of happiness. And, you know, we have just completed a major meeting of the G7. And we see the relationship of the G7 on that little tiny red dot in the right-hand corner of man's universe, which is only one component of the rest of the galaxy, which is only one component of the rest of it that's not shown in this picture. And so the gateway to these fields is, you know, what we're looking at, because in many ways, when we think of a field, you know, we want to try and see a field and what it means. And how big is that field? And some of us are pimples. And some of us are cow patties. Have you ever run through a field full of cow patties? It's a lot of fun. But it's no fun when you make a mistake. And it's no fun when we mess up our ecology. And the meeting of the G7 was complete, but there was no question about the reference of the economy and the ecology in terms of a symbiosis, because they have no understanding of the creation of the universe. And that's not a commentary. What is the universe and how it's created is it exists from energy, and energy is always in motion. And so to describe that motion, we say it has a charge. So energy is a charge in motion. And when we look at the universal order of creation of matters, we see one field that is put together with three fields: the matter, the antimatter, and the dark matter. But do you notice the gateway between the fields? Do you notice the fence between the fields? And do you notice that it's a two-way street? And so we all notice that there's a physicality. How do you notice something that you can't see? So the thing that we have been able to notice is that all things work in combination, and so that's the point. Two fields work with one field. So the energy has to go from a field to another field. And the way that is done is with PMTICs, which are the magnetical feeding energy systems of the universe. Part of the principal matter, where energy comes in packages, and it goes everywhere. That energy is everywhere for everybody. And then at some point, that field comes together and blends with other energy fields that come together and dilute. And they converge into a plasma gem, which is the combination of the principal matter, the transition matter, and the convergence matter. And all of this is still plasma matter. And it creates a MAGRAV condition, which is the focal point of the gravitational field forces. But the question is, where are you? What field are you in? And so that gravitational field force has to have a feedback with another gravitational field force. And once you have that feedback from another field force, then you have plasma positioning. And so that plasma positioning is defined as inertia, which is the field interaction of the MAGRAV field with the environmental field. And all of these fields work on the same principle of attraction and repulsion. So attraction and repulsion involve plasmatically what we call gravitational and magnetical field forces. So the magnetical is feeding and the gravitational is the feedback. Why is the gravitational the feedback system and not the feeding system when the higher energy is the gravitational and it feeds the lower energy, which is the magnetical? Well, because there has to be a feeding, but I think you all know when the feeding is done, right? When you go to a restaurant and you sit down for a meal, how do you know when to leave? And how does the restaurant know when you're going? And that is because you're fed. And so there has to be a feedback system to shut that off and say, thanks for the feeding. It's enough already. I don't need any more. I'm ready to move on. And the moving on is magnetical. So now that magnetical is a feeding. So the magnetical has gotten the feedback of the gravitational to know to stop feeding. So, you know, you could say to the chef in the kitchen, stop feeding me. Or you could just pay the waiter and leave. So we have different ways of doing things. And what I've described is a very physical way of doing things. So this is what we understand. When two forces come together, you know, it's there's a universal harvesting and there's a loose harvesting. There's other types of harvesting in between, but let's talk about the extremes, because what we're talking about is the most effective harvesting system, which is the universal harvesting of self-enhancement, where 1 and 1 is more than 2. Versus the loose harvesting system, which is the exploitation, not only of others, but the self-consumption in that process. And this is the truth. where the leash harvesting is actually self-consumption. And so for the temporary gain of robbing from others, the penalty is enduring. And so this is what we understand, the two forces coming together. And so, yes, it makes scientific sense. And yes, of course, it makes spiritual sense. But, you know, the thing is, the plasma science is a two-way street. And so in that two-way street, we kind of break it down between natural creation and natural decay. But scientifically, natural creation is the emission energy of what you are and what you're giving. And so the gravitational energy is the absorption energy. You take what you need. So the decay or the creation has to come from a balanced position of attraction and repulsion. And then from that particular position, then you understand if there's a growth or there's a shrinkage. So either way, the key reference point is the mag-graph. So there's a mag-graph plus a magnetical field force, and then there's a mag-graph plus a gravitational field force. And then there's a relationship between those two fields, and then that creates a field positioning. So it's a two-way street, two forces coming together. Did we say from which direction? Did we say from which dimension? Well, how many directions are there? And how many dimensions are there? So if we look at the basic two dimensions of transition and transition, and we see how they come together and they create those two force fields coming in two directions, create a third dimension of transportation. Did we say if it's physical, or did we say that it's plasmatic? We did say there's a magnetical gravitational relationship. And we did say that it's a two-way street. And we did say that it comes from the basic two dimensions of transmission and transition. So two forces come together in two dimensions from two directions and create your field of transmutation. Is there a pot of gold in the center? Because there was nothing in there, and I don't know what's in there. So we like to look at things that glitter. And so we like the shine of money. And so we all take our education system from the business schools of bankruptcy. And some of us are wiser than others, where we find that one man's garbage, another man's gold. But many of us are still looking for that gateway into the gold mine. And we know that that gold mine is glittering. We have a vivid imagination. So what happens is that we are now learning the lesson of symbiosis, where we have symbiotic relationships in our lives. So we have a participant-observer relationship, players and sports fans relationship, actors and musicians, and a relationship with the audience. Aren't those easy to understand? And then we look at nature, where we have the hosts and the parasites. Speaking of parasites, we have earners of welfare. And then we have more parasites, military industrial complexes. In order for them to survive, they have to have enemies. And then we have a wonderful relationship with teachers and students. Students want to know how to do things, and then when they don't know how to do things, then they become teachers. And then we have business people, of course, who understand about goods and services, but they need to understand about their customers, because their customers are part of the environment. So their goods and services are part of the ecology. So now, how do we go from one side to the other? So before we follow that pathway, we have to find the gateway. And that's what we're trying to discuss. So when we look at things in our physicality, what we're seeing is what it's not. We're just seeing a reflection. And so when we look at the universal community, they don't see the reflection. They see the emission. So, you know, from our noble standpoint, we think green. Well, they're not green either, because that's the color that the plants are reflecting. So what color are the plants? So when we look at our GANs, we see that the GANs is kind of white, which means it's every color. And every color is the totality. So we have the zinc GANs, which is kind of white, and the CO2 GANs, which is kind of white. And experienced plasma seekers can tell the difference. But we can blend those two, but they're very fundamental, because the CO2 in nature is a gas. And although in nature zinc is a solid, but as a plasma, the zinc becomes a gas, which is also a solid. So the zinc GANs and the CO2 GANs have the same kind of qualities. But a funny thing happens when this gas and this solid comes together to this midpoint of GANs, is that the GANs has this kind of energy that has created a field, and that field has created a hole in the middle of the field. And you say, well, in the middle of that field, well, look, there's nothing there. That field is gone. And you know it's gone because you can see from one side of the field to the other side of the field. So now you have a dilemma. Now you see that the byproduct of this field is a hole. And the feedback is that you can see through this hole. But what you can't see is what caused the hole. And where is that? And how do you get there? So that you have to find the gateway, don't you? Because when you look around the whole circumference of the hole, there's no door. And so when we look at our Earth space, you know, we see that there are a whole lot of things going on Earth. We have our magma, we have the crust, we have the atmosphere. We understand all of that is based on density. But, you know, we can go around the Earth, and we can go and fly and all sorts of things. And so we can do this in Earth space. But we're kind of limited to this range. We're limited to the Earth's range. And so we're limited in our understanding as well. But one of the things that has come is the periodic table of elements, which shows how all these elements are also limited to the Earth space. And so we look at a group of elements like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen that forms the amino acids. The sodium, magnesium, potassium, and calcium forms the salt environment. And now we know that there are actually 12 salt environments. And the product of these environments is our physicality in the zinc, the copper, and the iron. But not only we have carbon, which is organic in a solid, and we have silicon, which is inorganic, which is part of the earth. And we still really don't understand the relationship between the carbon and the silicon, which is one of the reasons why we differentiate between the organic and inorganic structure of our Earth space. And so please rest assured that many scientists are racking their brains trying to find the gateway. So anyway, this gateway is somewhere in this vanishing point, and you know, we don't have too much trouble throwing money into this hole, because we also throw our garbage in the same hole. And you know, we say that we throw our garbage away. Well, where is this away? And as I look through the hole, you know, I still don't see it. But you know, when we pour our money down the drain into the hole, and we throw our garbage away into that hole, well, it goes somewhere, doesn't it? So we say, well, this is me, this is what I have, and this is not me. So what is not me, we throw this away. But the moment we define what is me, we define what is not me. Right? Because if you don't define what is not me, then how do you know what is me? And if you don't define what is me, how do you define what is not me? And so this becomes kind of a point of conflict between our feedback saying this is me, and well, wait a second, it's another feedback which is not me. So you have two feedbacks, and then what are they feeding to? Well, they're feeding to this third field, the vanishing point. And the vanishing point is this point of no man's land between the transmission fields and the transition fields, which science likes to call the verification and validation of physical science, so that we can understand our point of existence, which is actually the transmutation based on the combination of three dimensions. So really the first two dimensions are a balanced maggraphs, and so we can't see that, so that becomes invisible. But there is a crossover point inside the vanishing point, and that crossover point is the transmutation point. So now we know not only is the maggrav invisible, but you can see through that maggrav to the other point. And if you can see through that point, then we understand that there are limitations on our understanding. And our limitations of our understanding are in fact limiting our soul, because our soul is stuck somewhere in no man's land. And that's the physical reality. So now we have to look at physical reality from a different perspective. We know that the plasma reality is a substructure of the physical reality. But there's no position. There's no reference point. So our physical reality is a byproduct field of the plasmatic reality field of a feeding system. And the reference point is in conjunction with the plasmatic reality field feeding system of another reference point. You need the two plasmatic realities to feed the physical reality. Now we got to find the gateway. And so between our plasma state, which is our point of view in Earth space, so the way we look at the transcendence of the various energy levels in the range on our Earth space, we see that we have a plasma state and we have a small matter state. And some way, somehow, we are crossing over this dynamic plasma transfer state. And we still can't see the gateway. But this we do know is we can certainly cross over. So when we look at the model of nuclear decay of the neutron, the way it's explained, so we have this one neutron, which is an initial fundamental plasma. And so how do we create this ray, which is the PM ticks, right? And so the ray is created in the process of decay. But the decay is a form of creation of the atom, which is the basic electron-proton combination. So what we didn't say, how many neutrons. We didn't say how many atoms. We didn't say if it's plasma reality or physical reality. We didn't say how many are involved. We didn't even say if it's in Earth space. What we did say is that we, as individuals, have a uniqueness, which is reflected in our soul spectrum, because we're all individual. And so how we interact with our environment is through this radiance feeding of our soul spectrum. And because of our environment, we get this feedback radiance, which is feeding through our soul spectrum. And so the feeding is the magnetical, the feedback then becomes the gravitational. But if our maggrav condition is gravitational, then how does the gravitational feed to the gravitation? So we now have to define other paths. And so when we look at our basic magnetical path, we can say that the North Pole is the emission pole and the South Pole is the absorption pole. But since we are now in a more advanced class, we can say not only. And not only one plasma, but not only another plasma. And so from our Earth space, we have, with respect to positioning, have to position ourselves through an interaction with another plasma. And the other plasma is also dynamic plasma. So the interaction between two dynamic plasmas is how energy is moving. And so when we're looking at these pictures, well, we can't see the PM ticks in motion and we can't see the plasma fields. And you know what? Even in between the two plasmas, which we can't see, is another crossover point of no man's land, which we can't see. And so there is a field around our plasma, which we can't see. And then there's an interaction with another plasma, which we can't see. And so everything seems to be kind of like, well, it's not solid because it's dynamic plasma. And the magnetical gravitational relationship is the feeding radiance and the feedback radiance. And so it could be done physically, it could be done plasmatically, but we didn't say where, and we didn't say how many it involves. What we did say is that two fields have to come together to create a third, and that is your dynamic plasma interaction. And so from there, you can create rays, and from there, you can emit rays. And from there, you can absorb rays. And from there, you can do this at light speed. But we didn't say which speed. And we didn't say which light. So what we did say is that there is a manifestation point when you bring the plasmatic symbiosis of one field plus another field. What you get is more than the two fields. But we don't say how many, we just say it's more than two. And so the interesting thing is, when we look at the way we interact with our Earth space, it's all about us, right? We want profit. And to get profit so that we have supposedly more. And so we create profit, but at the same time we create garbage. So one of the ways that we do this business-wise is with a company. And so we have to find out the gateways and how you create a company. But in the process, you create an environment. And so a good businessman will find the gateways to create a good business environment. But we're having trouble finding the gateway to the environment that matters, our Earth space. Because we're failing to understand that the basic science says, well, you know, we can't see these PM ticks because this is energy in motion. But we have been able to see gamma rays. And when we look at our physicality, we know that if we take our fist and say punch a brick wall, our fists are going to take the brunt of the damage. But gamma rays will go right through that wall. Well, and gamma rays will go right through us. And then there's this compromised rays called an X-ray. And this X-ray will go through us, but won't go through our bones. So this is kind of a half and half ray, right? It's a strange ray, right? It sometimes goes through and sometimes doesn't go through. But that's based on density. So if the density is solid, like a brick wall, like a bone, those are physical. But if the ray goes through, then it goes through like there's nothing there. That's the same way when you look at the hole in your gans, you can see right through that hole from one side to the other. And you don't call that X-ray, right? Because there's nothing there to stop it. There's no bone in the middle. You go right through, all the way through. And so you don't call that a gamma ray either, right? But you can see right through the gans, and you can see right through the hole in the gans. And then you can see what you don't see, but what you don't see is the gateway. So what you see is your Earth space, but what you don't see is the rotating hemispheres of the North and South Hemisphere. And so the only thing that you take into account is terra firma. You put your feet firmly planted on the ground. So it doesn't matter if you're upside down or right side up. or backwards or whatever, you know, wherever you are, up is up and down is down, and you're on Earth space. So the question is, where's the door? How did you get here? So, and then when you got here as a baby, but now you're an adult. So at some point you went from baby to adult. So, you know, we call that natural creation. But the thing is that you came into a lower energy, and that lower energy creation is called decay. So as you become more of the lower energy, oh, that's more decay. So by growing in the Earth space, you are decaying. Well, that's not the only factor. There are other factors, and we don't see what these other factors are. So we just try and keep going and fudging our reality. But now in the plasma reality, we understand that there's a plasmatic spectrum and a physicality spectrum. And the reason we say that is because we now know that there are higher energy fields, and these higher energy fields are not visible. So that qualifies that as being part of the plasmatic spectrum. But the plasmatic spectrum is the substructure for the physicality spectrum. And we know all about the physicality spectrum. And, you know, if you need a reminder, just, you know, go punch a brick wall and you'll see the physicality spectrum manifest in the swelling in your hand. So the thing is that there's a relationship, because one reality depends on the other reality, and there's a form of attachment, which is called a covalent bond. And somehow we cross over through no man's land with this covalent bond. But, you know, is this covalent bond the gateway that we're looking for? Right? Because we know that we have something on one side and we have something on the other side, and somehow they're connected, but, you know, we don't see the covalent bond. And the covalent bond means a bond in two directions. So we don't see the gateway either, which is like the door in a restaurant. You know, when you go into the kitchen, the door swings both ways. So where's this door? Where exactly is this door? And we don't have to really put a handle on the door, but we have to understand that if we create a condition, such as we've done in the cups of life, and we find that we have created physical conditions and created plasmatic conditions, and then between these two physical conditions, we've created a third plasmatic condition. Yeah, so we start with the magnetical field and the gravitational field in one cup, and we do the same thing in a second cup, but these two cups are different. One is an emotional cup and one is a physical cup, which means it has a different field strength. And so these two field strengths are basic field strengths of our Earth space. And so if we want them individually, we have to keep them at least 1 meter apart. But if we bring them together in the cups of life, we find that all the cups are creating GANs. And some of them create CO2 GANs, calcium GANs, zinc GANs, copper GANs, amino acid GANs, water GANs. There's a whole bunch of other GANs that we can create. But in the basic cups of life, what we've done is we've created another environment where we have a cup of soul. And when we bring those together with what? We now have to have a reference point. So we bring the cup of the earth, and the interaction of the cup of soul, the cup of emotion, and the cup of physicality with our environment the cup of the earth, has a connection, the cup of inertia. And in between each of these cups is a gateway. And there are two gateways, right? Because one's in swinging and one's out swinging. So when we look at the matter plasma spectrum, we see that there's a physical state and a plasmatic state. And there's a common denominator between these states. At any point in time, one state can be the dominant matter state. In other words, depending on the reference point, each state can be a feeding state or a feedback state. And this is all based on the energy feeding packs, which we call PM ticks. And they are not, how shall we say, pure. They are a dilution of composite plasma charges. And so this is what contributes to the spice of life. Each of us has our own composition of our aminogen. And each of us has our own field strength. And each of us has our own understanding. And each of us has our own point of reference. And when we get lost, we always have to default back to the soul point, the soul reference, because the earthly point of view is the earth's point of view. Our point of view is we are gravitational and we are manifest magnetically into the earth's gravitational field. So somehow we have crossed over from this transparency point into this manifestation point. We have crossed over at this vanishing point. And so we figured out that we have done this conversion by inversion, but collectively this is called transmutation. So what is our problem? Our problem has been understanding that there are man-made laws and there are universal laws. So our role is not to make man-made laws. Our role is to understand the universal laws. And so at the Keshe Foundation, we have vertical enhancement units and horizontal enhancement units. And these are very important because what we're trying to do is to choose the right gateway. When we choose the energy binding path to steal energy at the expense of others by cross or double cross, that is the lowest denominator. And it's very unfortunate because we're not alone. And this is the thing, in understanding our earth space, we have to now transcend the limitations of science. And when someone asks you what is plasma, just tell them it's a kind of energy state. There are higher and lower energy states, and it's very important because we've come to an existential crisis to understand that when we're looking at a magnetical gravitational balance, which we call a maggrav, we have to bring together the scientific responsibility and the spiritual responsibility. They are not mutually exclusive. They come together and they add to the knowledge. It's the rate of change that is our focal point. And can we speed up that relationship? So we set up fields. So one type of field model is like a spider versus a fly. Another field model is our adversarial position versus a position of coexistence. But the plasma model is a relationship of our awake state and our dream state. And what we're talking about right now is our earth space, because you have to identify one to be able to identify the other. And so we have to find that gateway to be able to get to the other, so that the science can meet the soul of man. And what opens that gateway is peace. And we know that because when we look at the universe, we see that the universe is peaceful. And we see that when we go into dreamland, that it's peaceful, it's safe. And yet there is something different in terms of our connection with the universe, because each of us has gone through a plasma dilution process. And so on this planet alone, as far as humanity is concerned, that number is 7 billion. But when you look at the soul entities of everything that has manifest, the number is incalculable. I don't know what that number is. I don't even think we have an English word for it. But what we do know is that there's a sequencing of the way energy is manifest. So just like we have a soul, the sun has a soul, and the earth has a soul. And that is the interaction that has attracted the soul of man. So the soul of man is the product, convergence from the energy from the soul of the sun plus the soul of the earth. So now that we have the soul of the man, it interacts with the soul of the earth, and it attracts the soul of the body and creates this inversion. And now we have the soul of the body, and it interacts with the soul of the earth. And so we manifest the physicality of the body. And so this is our default pathway manifestation. And we all do this together, but we're all different. Because once we come to this manifestation point, then our individuality takes over. So we see that everything is kind of related to the soul of the earth. And that's what we're talking about, this earth space relationship. And this earth space relationship is dominated by the emotional, physical relationship. That affects the physicality of the body. And that's what we're focusing on right now, so that we know exactly where we are. And we know exactly how the plasma rules work, because these rules will not change as we go through different energy states. And we will be going through different energy states, but each energy state is stronger by an order of magnitude of at least 1. And this higher energy state is what feeds the lower energy state. So we can manifest these energy states through either natural creation or natural decay. But there's another way, and that is to be catalytic or non-consuming. And so we find that there are different transfer rates, and the higher the plasma state, the higher the transfer rate state. And this is all done by many orders of magnitude. And so what are the defining characteristics? Well, so we understand that the plasma absorbs fields, but plasma is also a barrier of fields. But also plasma is bound to the ethos of the universe. So the rules of absorption and the rules of being a barrier, or the rules of absorption, or the rules of reflection, are bound to the ethos of the universe. So this is where we run into trouble, because when we looked at the speed of light, the way we understand it had a physical limitation, because that took care of some physical realities, but there are other realities that we're not taking care of. And so one of those realities, of course, is understanding creation, understanding where we came from, and understanding how creation works. So right away, we found the limitations of the physical speed of light. And then we find that there are other factors to take care of, as we talked about, larger schemes of morality, compassion, and courage, because this has to do with the ethos of the universe. And the ethos of the universe is life, and life wants to live. And the whole purpose of life is for learning. And if nothing more, the purpose of learning is to learn what the purpose of life is. So all of this has to do with the manifestation, and understanding that what manifestation is when two fields come together and they form another. So any field formation is a manifestation, any field. So that means it could be tangible or non-tangible, visible or non-visible, plasmatic or physical. Okay, so that means we can kind of touch it physically, or we can feel it emotionally. And so therefore, emotion of presence is also a form artifact of a manifestation point, but it's a form artifact of energy and motion. And that's what we need to open the gateway. So when we are unlocking the gateway, we can close it or we can open it. And so it's the emotion, energy, manifestation, which unlocks the gateway. Please explain to me the debate on this planet between peace and prosperity and war and poverty. So we're so busy putting boundaries. So, you know, this is me and this is not my garbage, right? And that's not me, that's my garbage. So my garbage is not me. Really? You created it, it's yours. Not only did you create the garbage, but you created yourself. So how do you know yourself when you, without putting these limitations, because this is how you compare. But if you are not on the one side, well, you're not on the other side either. So you are in the middle. But you are defined by what you are not. Well, if you are defined by what you are not, then what you are not is what you are. And what you are is what you're not. And that's why we can't see this vanishing point gateway, because we are not a product of our environment. We create the environment. That's our reference point. And what we give our time and attention to is what we create. That's our reference point. And so whether or not we open or close this gateway is dependent on us understanding which feedback system is feeding us and who's feeding the feedback. And so the vision enhancement units are a feedback system. And we are really hoping to be able to gift this to the US military, so the brave soldiers, patriotic soldiers, will stop committing suicide as they go through PTSD recovery. We are not the ones holding it back. So when we look at these vision feedback enhancement systems, you know, we question, is this enhancing the soul, or is this enhancing the spirit, Or is it defining the boundaries that we have created? And if we define these boundaries, then can we modify them? Well, of course we can, because we can default to the pathway of manifestation. This default position is our refugium, our peace stone, our hope, where we can bring the ethos of the universe to this planet. So somehow we have crossed this gateway onto this planet. And so we continually put boundaries up, you know, this is my garbage, this is my boundary, this is me, this is not me. Well, what is me is peace, because we all came in peace. Now, there's something, a second point to be made today, is we are trying to go beyond the vanishing point. And so we haven't reached that yet publicly, but it's the crossover of no man's land between the transparency point and the manifestation point, which obviously involves the relationship of dematerialization and materialization. So now, what is this gateway to this normal? The majority of us are normal, and the majority of us seek freedom and emancipation. And the universe is normal. The earth is part of the universe, and the earth seeks freedom and emancipation. So our existential crisis defaults to the harvesting of the plasma energy of the plasma universe. And our purpose is to find this gateway so that we can get our earth back into a peaceful existence. Because it's not only earth, because earth is one plasma field amongst a variety of plasma fields. And we are plasma fields. So the relationship is always there. We have been thinking in schemes too small. We have been thinking in abandoning our responsibilities through abdication. And we have been thinking of abandoning this earth, which is, you know, really crazy, because we have such a beautiful planet. This is heaven. It's heaven on earth. And so the heaven on earth is always giving us a feeding radiance. And when we do things right, we get this feedback radiance. So we see the greater oneness for the common good. And so we are just dynamic residue where we can give independently and reach interdependently and use this emotional feedback transformation to teach how one nation, one planet, and one universe coexists. And we know this is true because we know it by connection. We don't see the connection, but there is a contiguous connection from us to the universe. So we are only in the earth space. So what does that mean? That is the proof of concept. You see, because we came to planet Earth, we didn't come to planet Mars. There was a preference, right? So the being born is by preference and sentimentality to the Earth, not to the Mars. And so this was a feeding, higher plasma feeding to a lower feeding. And it had to go through this gateway, and this gateway brought us Once we went through this gate, it brought us to Earth. So the proof of concept is that you were born. Are we inferior? The proof of concept is that we're not. That's another fallacy. Because the way you were born was using their system. We now have a new system. We have launched that new system on June the 6th. We are in the post June the 6th, 2022 space race. We are exiting the Earth space race. And the Universal Council has a meeting with the Universal Council of the Universal Community. It's a very special day coming on the North American continent, the 4th of July. Apple pie. Tomorrow is the July the 4th celebration for the United States of America, where you can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we can sing and dance and be very, very happy. There's lots to celebrate. And tomorrow, the whole world is going to be celebrating. Please stand by. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, Teachings in Plasma Science. We're calling all Earth space residents. The Earth needs a world peace treaty. Sign it. Sign it with a pen, sign it with your soul. Open the gateway to your soul. Understand the earthbound physical and emotional transformation. This comes from the transmutation, from the transparency point to the manifestation point. The universal refugium of the universal community is now available in our Earth space. So we have to relearn the universal language of freedom. And we will do that as the plasma science needs to be delivered in exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the outer space age. And thank you. I hope you enjoyed the ride today. Over to you, Mark.
Well, thank you, Alex. Another beautiful teaching. I have a lot to learn, obviously, but thank you for untangling some of those knots. As we usually do, I don't think anyone's here for the first time. I'm just looking for the list, but if you are, feel free to open your mic and tell us who you are and where you're from. I also wanted to thank Jacko for helping to administrate this platform. As we see, we've increased our membership from 203 to 210. I'm not sure if they're all legitimate people, but I know that Anna joined and VFriend joined, Lewis joined, and a number of others. So thank you, Jacko, for helping sort out the real people from the bots, let's say. And if you need a minute or two, Alex, or you would like to continue on. If you go back to your first one on feeding, you were talking about surface to volume.
Okay.
And what one of the Austrians that Mr. Keshe said, he forgot to tell them that he had lost 4 kilos. And that was because he was now feeding from his soul. He had managed to lock in a little bit more, and he's not finding the need. So when you're feeding plasmatically, are there any volumes or surface areas, would you think? I'm just wondering about that. And then I wanted some of the travelers that are here, Jacko, Andreas, Claudia, Stefania, what they sensed with this food issue. I know he said that the fellow from Austria said 4 kilos, which is close to 10 pounds. He forgot to mention that. And he's not finding, or maybe he's turning his nose up a little more with food. I know that Galib said also that he was eating, but it wasn't like the same. It was almost like he didn't want to eat in a way. So when we're feeding plasmatically, is there a surface to volume ratio? I would think if you're feeding off the fields, does surface to volume come into play at all?
Well, certainly it does, because there's as we say, there's an absorption and there's a barrier, right, of the plasmatic fields. So the strength of that barrier determines is how big that field is. So if you maintain the same amount of strength and you increase the size of the field, then you literally weaken that barrier. So plasmatically, in order to increase the size of the field, you have to increase the strength of the field. Then if you increase the strength of the field, then you can maintain that barrier. So now you understand how growth is possible. Now that's one answer to your question. I'd like to answer it another way. When we are born here, we are born as babies. We're not born as adults. In order to grow into adults, we have to feed ourselves to grow that way. So literally, what we're doing is we're, shall we say, decompressioning our physicality. If you think of a baby as a compressed adult, right? So then an adult becomes a decompressed baby. I'm just, kind of giving a reference point here. And so through that decompression, the point I'm trying to make is that you are still able to coexist in your earth space environment, whether you're a baby or whether you're an adult. Because if you were to adhere to the rules of surface to volume ratios, your skin would become so thin and so weak as you grow old that you would just basically burst. And if you want to test that, get a balloon and blow it up. And you will find that the bigger the balloon, the thinner the skin, and the more susceptible it is to bursting. So if we maintain our field strength, that kind of field strength that we manifest as a child, as a baby, if we can maintain that as an adult, then you understand how the universal body enhancement units will return physical and emotional vitality back to the body, because we have lost some of that field strength along the way due to our interaction with our environment. Okay, so the surface to volume ratio is dependent on the kind of feeding system. And we didn't say if it's physical, and we didn't say if it's plasmatic, and we didn't say if it was only from physical and plasmatic, or plasmatic and plasmatic. You see what I'm saying? So we have different options. The point is that two fields come together and create the third. And it is from that point that we can grow.
Thank you. I was wondering if any of the ones, Andreas or Stefania, Claudia, Jacko, you've been through the system. What happened in your relationship to food or eating or feeding off fields? I know Mr. Kesh said everything starts once you leave the area of the system. this new child in a way. And we know we can do it. We're only 20% short, so we're already doing 80% of it. It's the only 20%, so we should be able to link into the soul and allow, that's what he said the man from Austria was doing. He had linked into the soul and allowed him to feed more from the fields of the universe rather than the matter state. I'm wondering if anyone of you would like to make any comments in that regard. I can't talk with a mouthful? No.
You're not getting any feedback.
But I was just seeing what sort of experience they went through or are going through, if they noticed anything along that vein. Stefania.
Hello, can you hear me? Because I don't know if you can hear me properly or not.
I know you're looking younger. Are you looking lighter as well?
This is what my sister's saying.
Yes, we heard that. Yes.
She said that I'm different. She, she's my twin. She said that she doesn't know. She doesn't know. I've been with her all week after being in the system, and she said you are different. You're changed. She's not straight away anyway.
Your boyfriend reported also that you were changed in a way, yes? And you said you weren't getting as much agita as before. I think you mentioned something about irritation or getting upset over something.
No, me and him, we easily, we're very different. So very easily we could, he make me pass the level. Let's put it this way. When you are, when you're
past
someone
the level. Okay.
In a way, it's a perfect relationship because when you are different, it's easy to have a relationship with someone that's like you. So similar to you, no? So everything goes well and everything's nice. But if you are with someone who is completely different, it's more a challenge, no? So it make you pass level. And I have to say, after the machine, doesn't matter what he was saying, doesn't matter what, I was always, it's like, because my wish was peace, no, but also peace inside, no, because to have a peace outside, you have to have it inside, and it seems like I have this peace inside me that, I can really feel it. Like, doesn't matter, things doesn't matter, you have these deep feelings of peace, like really like it's like if it's a deep work has been done,
a balance.
Something has changed at a deep level, and now nothing, even you are not worried as much. You're if maybe before, during this I don't know, maybe it's pandemic, you have all different worries, but it's like things are not worrying you as much, even at the physical level. I feel, I don't know if I can say the more untouchable, but I feel like I don't know, you definitely feel stronger. I know that you're gonna laugh, the first time when I come out of the machine, I look myself, sometimes it can be just the mirror you are looking yourself with, but I did look younger, more in peace. You all definitely feel connected with the machine, definitely.
You mean in the mirror? When you look in the mirror, you have a better sense about yourself?
It just, I don't know how to say it. You just look, to me, you look more beautiful.
And your sister too, you said, she noticed.
My sister said it as well, yeah. She said, and she was very skeptical. she always been very skeptical, you know, like every, I don't know, many of us going through the same experience, where if you love plasma technology, and if you love the Cash Foundation, if you love what we learning every day, your parents or your brothers or your relatives, you always will find someone who is skeptical, you know. And she thought I would come back and talk nicely, but nothing would be changed. This is what she thought.
Yeah, and so many people in Hollywood and that are in politics, they're always going for these facelifts or these other small procedures that sort of, you know, they make you look younger, I guess, for a little while, but then they end up sagging and or sometimes they botch them up. But this is a beautiful way, rather than going to the plastic surgeon to tighten up this or raise that. The elevation of the soul, again, the entity shows more of its beauty naturally. Very nice. And what about the food, Stefania?
Yeah, I'm not hungry at all. This is another I'm keeping my diary. So what I recommend to everyone who's going into the system, I mean, maybe you do it already, but I do really recommend if you ever to keep a diary. Because sometimes in the day things pop up, and I now definitely I want to have a group of the people who've been in the system. I want to have a group, for example, with Italians, because sometimes I speak with some people who've been in the system with me, and they tell me things that I'm experiencing. So that's why for me it's also very important that we talk between us. Because, for example, one strange things that happened to me and happened to not just me, but to other people who've been in the system with me, that we have very strong synchronicity now. So I make example.
You mean connection?
Yeah, like I said, for example, I would think a person, and I think like something I would like to say to this person. So it happened to me actually, maybe the next day or 2 days later, I was in the system where I was on the phone with somebody, talk with him, and obviously not pay attention what he was saying and think about this other person and thinking, I have to call this person. But I couldn't call her because I was on the phone with this other person. And I wanted to ask him about something that would be important for me to do it the following day. And as soon as I put the phone down, that person called me and asked me the things I wanted to ask him. And I didn't speak with this person for I don't know, quite a while, you know. So it's not a person who are talking regularly.
Zero time communication.
Yeah, and then happened to me again, very like one after the other with another person. So to me, I pay attention. You know, every one of us has synchronicity. You think about someone, they call you. But in that case was strange because it happened one after the other. And then I called to my friend, who she's been in the system, and she told me the same things. You know, Stefania, I think this happened. I think that this happened. I think this come up. She told me she had this delivery she wanted to have the next day, but was impossible because the delivery is supposed to come 4 days later. And the next day, the guy ring the bell and it was the delivery she wanted, you know. So she told me one thing after the other, she had this synchronicity. So I think it's very important that who has been in the system also is somehow we make groups so we can talk and share our experience after also the system. And then if you make notes, there are so many come up, you know, I don't know how to say that, but definitely for me, I don't know, because maybe I wish for peace. 100% I feel in peace. You know,
Okay.
like I got this deep peace inside me.
Well, you must have a favorite food. Maybe it was steak, or maybe it was red grapes, or one of your favorite foods. What happened when you thought about those foods? I mean, you're probably still eating something. What is actually psychologically or physiologically happening with you?
Okay, you know that something has changed. Like I told you, you know it, something has changed in the deep level. I talk about me as my experience.
Sure.
And I had in the machine when I was in the second chair, because also I was fixed with this wish. No, it's not like oh, I want to have world peace. It was in me, it was fixed in my head. I could not think anything else. So when I was in the second chair, I felt my wish was stop killing, end of killing, and it was also stop war and injustice, but definitely handle killing, because I connect to the to the animal in the motion when I heard the killing, the animal dying. So yeah, so to me that was very, very strong at that time. Now that I'm out of the machine, I'm not angry ever. I never felt angry, but I eat because the society you're in today, you are surrounded by food. So if you have a breakfast with your boyfriend, obviously, what you don't eat, you got all social life surrounded by lunch, dinner, breakfast,
Social, yes.
and then you do things for habit. So you do it because it's your habit. You're used to. I'm not saying that my life has completely changed. I feel change inside. I have those habits that I used to have before. I keep doing them, like I keep eating, but I know I don't need it. I'm not hungry.
Wow.
I'm not starving. Maybe I should try. So for example, now in the evening, unless, if I'm on my own, I just don't eat now. So it's very easy. If I'm on, I can do whatever I want. So I'm not eating. But obviously, if I'm in a friend's house and they cook for me, I will eat. Make sure thanks in food, but I will eat. But it's
Don't
not
disappear on us, please.
Eh?
I said, don't disappear. You'll become so thin that we won't see you. If you turn sideways, we can't see you anymore.
I mean, yeah, I don't feel like yeah. But because you feel, so when you said when I said I feel connected to the machine, you feel this energy intake. I don't again, I explain only my feelings, sensation. Okay, this is me just making.
Sure.
Okay, so I know that if I close my eyes, if I go into bed, or if I'm quiet, or if I just think about what happened in Linz, straight away the feelings come back. And I don't know if that feelings could be the feeding, I don't know. Or I don't know if what I said, me connected to the machine, maybe it's not the machine, maybe I'm connected with my soul more. It's like, yeah, sometimes I feel like the gloves, you got gloves that it's been changed upside down, when the inside become the outside, you feel like
inside
a glove
out. Mm-hmm.
is bit, and you stay. It's like if when you enter the flying system, is you feel like if you're a gloves and you're being changed inside out, and then when you come out of the flying system, I feel like I'm still inside out. I didn't go back. I feel like maybe my soul is more in charge. But I don't know. Again, I could imagine.
We're learning.
I could,
from you.
but these are just sensation. I just feelings, or sometimes I have these thoughts. They come into my head because I'm trying to process. I'm trying to process myself what happened, and I'm trying to. But without that part of it, because you can put as much as thought as you want and analyze as much as you want rationally with your head, that doesn't take off the fact that every day I feel this deep peace inside me, like a deep change inside. So that cannot be taken away. Doesn't matter every conclusion or every thought to come up to my head, or every supposition of what could be, you know, that deep feelings is there. And this, I think, what my sister noticed as well. You know, I noticed.
She sensed the field. She must have sensed the
Feeling.
change in the field of you.
Yeah, and for her to say that is a big compliment, because she's very, very skeptical. She always been, and she had to admit this in front of everyone, because we talked, you know, we had like a week with her boyfriend, me, my boyfriend. So we discussed this.
So you're identical twin?
I'm identical twins, yeah.
Wow. No, I wanted to ask you also about the spots. You said you had these little spots on your arm, and that was
Gone.
Last-
Yeah, but they're gone. That they were gone the moment I come out from the machine.
That's what I mean. You must have wished for them to go with the power of your soul before. Like last year, you know, you knew you could, you know, saying, you know, these spots don't belong to me. They came from whatever.
Obviously, I didn't want them there. But what happened is, since this, I call him pandemic, but since this period that happened, I start to be more sensitive to the sun. So every time I go into the sun,
yes, okay,
I get these red spots all over. Sometimes so bad that I have a friend said to me, they recommend me to go to hospital. But usually what I would do, I will use the KAKT one. I will spray on my arm. And usually in 2 or 3 days, you see the improvements. And with time, they will be clear very quickly. Definitely with the KAKT, you can see you got gradual improvement. But what was struck me about the system was that the moment I come out, they were not there. You could see them. You could see them very so subtle. If I was in the day with the light, you could see maybe a few, like a dry little pump. But then definitely by the end of the following day, my skin was like new, like a baby skin.
Yeah, and he was saying it's not really the system, it's your soul that wanted to see the end of the suffering somehow in the physicality, so it did the work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, you feel like that. You feel exactly what Mr. Cash said, that those machines, they just enhance. Definitely. That's why in my case, for example, I had a huge headache. I was there for 6 hours with Italians for a long time. And for me, even though I had my experience, so I could feel this, you know, all the experience I shared with you before, you know, the one of self-achievement, you know, so the earth with the plasma dome around it, you know, very, very small. You know, I could have this experience, the system 1 and system 2. But when I went from chair 1, 2, 3, I had this enormous pressure around my head, around my eyes, around. It was really, really was the main things for me, this pressure. And I don't want to call him a headache, because a headache could feel like a negative feelings, because you could tell it was a positive expansion or positive work. I could tell something was working inside. And obviously in the sit 1, for me, I could feel also all around the body. So it was working not just in my head, but also through my body, like if my organs were working, like if something was going, you really have these feelings on going back to balance, you know, things were going back to balance. But I had this pressure all day long in my head and on my back of my eyes, on my what we call third eyes. And then, but nevertheless, I had it present, but I went through my experience, because I had these feelings. They're like a magnified lamp, magnified. You got these feelings when you're in the system. They're like a waterfall of feelings. So you can still have your own experience, no? So I could have both, this headache, but this experience at the same time. And then when Mr. Cash talked about this man who had a problem with his eyes, and he also went through this pressure in his head, I thought, oh, maybe, because again, you have to work it out yourself, no? Oh, maybe, because I used to have problem with my eyes. I couldn't see from my left eye, and I regained vision with some neural exercise I learned to do to reconnect the brain to my eye. And, you know, already then the doctor said to me, you don't, something impossible. But I always had to work at my eyes to make it work properly. And since the, sorry, I'm calling this pandemic, but since this period of the last 2 years, my eyes went down, went really, really down. And I thought I lost a lot of the improvement I gained before 2 years ago. And I thought I would never get back my vision as before. So I thought, I don't know if I will ever back. So I have to do my exercise. My exercise seems that I usually doing, and they are so effective. I will have to repeat them to gain some vision back, no? But since I've been in the machine and I had this really like pressure in my head, the headache around, pain on the back of my eyes, and I come out of it, my eyes are now, I will not say normal, but again, I feel like I had this deep improvement on my vision. Like if I'd done a very intensive work on my eyes, you know, and now I feel like my eyes have regained the quality I used to have before 2 years ago, if not better. And I feel like the permanent change. You really have these feelings of a permanent, something has changed permanently in a good way, no? Things, you know, you have these feelings, no? And so now when I do my exercise, so I done them before to go in the system, and then I done it the next day when I come out of the system, and the quality was like very noticeable. Like if before going into the system, I had to wait 40 minutes for my eyes to release. Then after I went to the system, my eyes were doing everything without me even needed to practice. So because I do certain movement and focus together to, anyway, there are certain things I have to do to regain my vision to a certain things. So after being in the system, the eyes were already okay. And they were already moving with not jerks, very smooth movements, and very fluid. I could focus and moved very easily, something that I always struggle to do it at the same time with certain visual exercise I used to do. So I definitely noticed a huge improvement on my vision, even when you have a lot of the exercise I do are with the eyes closed, and I use the mind to see, you know, and so I could easily do that after the system, like I never done before. So I definitely noticed this improvement, but also the physical level, because I also do a lot of training, martial art. And if after these 2 years of period, I was holding a lot of tension, very hard to release, like if you go like something neurologically going on, because when something neurologically is going on, you find difficult to release the muscle tension. You know, if for who does sport or for who does work with his body, you understand what I'm talking about. So after being in the system, all that was gone. So again, I had all my body muscle release, the muscle tone was good. My tendon and ligament was very good. So noticeable that I could do much more that I usually could do. So I felt benefit at the physical level, and I felt benefit mentally. So at the end of the day, I thought it really doesn't matter which is your experience in the machine. Obviously, I didn't have the chance to travel in the moon, or I didn't have a vision like going to Venus or going to Mars. I didn't have that. But you know, what I'm getting out of it after the trip and during the trip, for me, that is already good enough for me. Like is definitely something that I will recommend everyone. Doesn't matter if you're going on the moon or you don't go on the moon, you know, because I noticed you will find people, they do big travel. So people like the woman was with me. She traveled here, traveled there, this civilization. She saw this other, you know, she saw herself. You know, there are some people who, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what, why some people, they have all this fantastic trip, you know. I don't know if, I don't know what happened in them to be able to do so. But for example, I didn't do that. I just sort of, I felt like I sorted out my eyes.
Well,
And
thank you.
Question, Stefania.
yeah,
Thank you
yeah, please, yeah.
for
Yeah.
Hi,
sharing.
everyone.
For those who are, oh, go ahead, Jalal.
Because I can talk for hours. You know.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing to help us understand more for people that not here, the people that are here that may listen in the future who are skeptical of, you know, what's this all about, but that's helping us to understand more. Go ahead, Jalal. Thank you, Stefania.
For those who enter and interact with their souls, did that now in this moment of time. What are you, Stefania?
Sorry, in this moment of time,
Yes, now. What are you?
What country?
No, what are you now? Are you working? Are you walking? What you are doing now in this moment?
I'm sitting.
Okay, that's good. Also, Andreas, I hope that he is sitting. Now, did that give you some ability? You know, we use the physicality and we are trying to reach the emotion which is behind the action of physicality. Do you remember this teaching, Stefania?
Yes.
Okay. Now, both of you who I see here, Stefania and Andreas, if you do the interaction of the hands, do you feel any different in the emotion side or not?
Can you repeat the interaction of the hands? Because
Okay.
I always miss that. I always miss that bit.
Okay. You remember the exercise of the hands or whatever, give it a take in the fields. All that we are trying to reach the emotion behind it. Yes, do you remember?
How you have to put the finger? Because I never actually
Okay.
read properly or listen
do you remember
properly.
the teaching of the picking the glass of water?
Picking the glass of water. I remember when we picked the cup.
Yeah. You remember that the teaching behind it? Do you remember it? When Mr. Cash teach us in the teaching, in his teaching, that we are do it automatically. We pick up the cup, but he said behind picking the cup in the matter state there is emotion, and you are trying to reach this this emotion. If you reach the emotion, you reach the interaction. You will interact with the fields more strongly than the matter state itself. Now, because you faced, you and Andreas, in the machine, the fields of the emotion, some movement, some dynamic things happened between your emotion and the devices. So did that interaction give you little bit more understanding or more connect to the emotion side?
For sure, 100%.
Okay, now why don't you also Jaco? Okay, thank you. Why don't you now practice the teaching of picking the cup without touching it in reality?
Yes, you're very true, actually. We should focus on stuff like that.
Because now you establish the connection. Now you need to start working with it. You know, like us, the knowledge seekers, we establish connection with the plasma technology or knowledge or plasma science by the nano, by the ganses, by the fields. We need to work with it. It's the same thing with you and all the guys who has been in touch with the device. But anyway, thank you guys.
No, very true. Actually, I really thank you for remind us for this, because this is the main reason why we're doing all this. Is why we're doing this is for start to get more connected, you know, at the fields level. And you've been in the machine as well, no? You've been in the machine as well.
Exactly, and don't forget, you are already connected with them with the machine.
Yeah,
so it will support. Yes.
May I add?
Yes.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
The time when I was inside, I played with the spectrum of fields. I tested them. I looked how my body reacts. I was really experiencing the flows through the body, and this was for me an eye-opener, definitely. And what you say with the connection, I think in this group I can tell. I first, when I came in, I greeted the system, and then I sit on the first chair, and I started to connect as I do always when I spray the dome. I connected the knowledge seekers, the Universal Council, the supporters, and when I came to the Dome of Peace, extremely strong emotion ran through my body. My tears were flowing, and it was an experience like I seldom had before in my life. And during the changing of the chairs and in the flight system, these spectrum opened up. It became more, and I felt what is possible. It was not that it appeared, but the knowledge that it is possible and what is to come was definitely 100% there. So after I was there in the evening, I went back to the hotel and was standing in the window, looking down to my car, and I had a similar experience there. I felt that my physicality, my soul physicality can connect to the car's soul physicality. And if you combine it, you can put it in the envelope. I was not able to put it in this envelope, but I felt that it is possible. And then you can transport and manifest on a different place. And in fact, this is exactly the same what we do when we travel by soul. So the learning process is extremely strong. And I call this a McGrath condition pressure, Stefania, where you were talking about this pressure in your head a little bit is like almost like a little bit of tinnitus, but it is not a problem. It is not hurting. It is the energy connecting to the systems, to the McGraths, to the stackers, to all the other ones who are working with this dome of peace is a collection of all. And exactly that is what happened to me. Since then, since I was in the machine, it is still there. It didn't disappear. So I think this is the fundament, the basics of what is to come in the next step when we start to transport the physicality. Is nothing else than put it in this envelope. Your soul is there. Your soul has the power. We know that. it's up to us to open up enough that it is possible and that we allow it. And Mr. Cash came in and he says, it's easy, it's no problem. I told him, yes, it's okay, but probably I still have a lot to learn. It was a wonderful experience. I wouldn't miss it. And I talked to Galip in the Dutch teachings last Thursday, and it was very nice. He also confirmed several things like this lightness inside of the room. At that moment, I was not aware, but after when I came out, then yeah, it changed. And then I thought, my goodness, normally I'm 110 kilos, so it's not so easy to climb into the flight system. Was also not so easy with my 188 meters height, and but in fact it felt like almost flying. So this is really things we have to go through, we have to learn, but we're on the right way, and together, the more we connect together, the more we will reach this goal. And it's wonderful to do with you.
So you had one experience in there, or I know you said you were invited back. Did you have one experience so far, or you've been back for more?
I haven't been back for more. It was like this. I came out, Dean came to me to do the interview, and Mr. Cash came and he says, no, you have to come second time. So I'm planning, but the problem was he wanted to have me on Monday, but on Monday I had to work, had emergency duty and everything, so I could not change the date to get free. And the problem was that on Thursday they had a holiday in Austria, and Friday they were not working in the center. So on Friday I had to go back home, and I'm seeing forward to the next experience, and it probably will be in September.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It is. It is. And as Jalal says, with his emotion, the emotion is the connector, like the amino acids in the physicality. And this connects everything and opens up everything. But we have to allow it. Because we closed this thing for so long time, such a long time for humanity. But it comes, it's on the way.
So Alex, with all these fields interacting here, are we creating some sort of free plasma just being together, even though maybe people are not speaking? They have a field and these fields are interacting, and somehow we're creating a free plasma within the group or group of people. Maybe you want to comment on that? Thank you, Jacko. I want to ask you about the food as well.
Let's say 50%.
Wow.
I reduced, I did not stop, but I reduced. I cannot eat anymore than 50% of what I did before. And it is enough, and I feel good, so I don't need. And then it's also with this broader band of spectrums, if you're inside there, you understand that it is possible to live completely without. Because if all this energy is on the right place, you don't need it. You definitely don't need it.
That's what I was saying. We're 80% doing it, so you just need a little push to get that other 20%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody to his field strength. Yeah, we have to work on that. That
And
is
in
what
the
is
new
in front of us.
cities, he's saying there'll be no supermarkets.
No, if your building is providing these fields, these energies, why should you? And that's what I say, that this future is extremely interesting. On all levels, energy, health, living, everything, traveling. And what I noticed, if you talk about it to people, even if they're open, you see in their eyes, they're thinking, you run crazy. But yeah, in the end,
the men in the white coats are looking for you.
Yeah, there's no problem.
That's okay.
I can handle that.
Yeah, they just haven't they haven't been allowed to see. We've been privileged to see a little bit of this the door has been cracked open and we've been able to sort of see a little bit, but there's so much more ahead of us.
Yes, but what I hope very strongly, and it feels like it goes in this direction, is that I would be extremely happy if there's a possibility, for example, to take a person who is willing to experience, and that we, with our capabilities, our soul strength, provide them the experience so that they can see themselves. And of course, if we connect together, there is no limit. Definitely not. But it would be really great. I say this, my son, for example, he listens, he is open for new things, but to a certain point he says, bring me this flying car, then I believe you.
Sure, we all have that. Show me first and then I'll believe.
Yeah, it's our physical way. And I think it's logical, it's normal, but it would be great to like I had with the car, you know, if you're on the soul physical level, you connect together, you have this aid, this connection, this center point. If your soul just not pack yourselves, it packs both, and then you can give this person, this soul, the same experience. Then it would be much easier to show how it is and what it is and why we're doing these things. Because we can tell it 100,000 times, we can tell it on 100,000 ways. In the end, it is the experience that counts.
Yes. Alex, are we generating? Oh, go ahead.
I don't know, I just wanted to thank you, Jaco, because you couldn't put it a better way. I just remember also when we're in circle, 6 of us, and I take the hands of the people next to me. Mr. Cash suggests us to go in circle and take each other's hand. And the moment I took the hands, it was like being again in the flying system. So exactly what Jalal also said, that or Jaco said, that you know, in this environment, you really feel that we are Maghreb. We know we are Maghreb. We know already, but that you really feel that power that we talked about all the time, and it's true for the people who've been there. If we can replicate our experience that we had in there, also outside, that would be, you know, be the replication cup, and you know, that would be definitely something now we work on. But it's true. So what Jaco said, when you experience it, obviously, because you had experience, that you know, that it's much easier to replicate. But yeah, you can really feel that we are like the flying system. That's also what I learned through this experience. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I was inside with Francine, and then back then we didn't hold hands together, but I told her, we spoke later together, and I told her next time we will. Because if you connect your hands, you have the giver and the taker, and you accumulate the energy that is circulating in the room anyway. So it's an enhancing of already existing fields. And I had this experience about 12, 13 years ago in Germany, where I went to a place where it was not so good energy. And with this contact, if you hold each other's hands, we were 3 persons then back then, and that opened up the possibility to let the love, the energy flow. And it is difficult to describe, but it is like an enormous amount of energy that comes free if you do this. And I think that the right people with the right intentions, with the right connection, will open up these doors, and that gives us possibilities that we cannot imagine at all at the moment.
And I remember a few years ago, Jalal and I were in class and we decided to connect. Do you remember that, Jalal? And I put my hand
The feeling
over
with the hands, huh?
Remember?
Yes, of course.
I got a shock on my hand for sure. Something like a point or a nail touched my hand and I pulled it away and I went, wow. And both of us had the experience, I think, simultaneously. This was maybe 3 years ago or something along that line where I saw the people holding hands and I said, gee, we could do this right through the computer, and we did, and both of us had an interaction
It was
simultaneously.
2019,
Okay.
January or February, I think, that time.
Mhm.
That's the connection. And the no limits.
Alex, do you would like to come in, or would Andreas like to add something here? Wow. I was
Let
just
me
thinking,
in, let me in.
yeah, the free plasma that we're creating here.
Let him in, let him in.
Okay, come on in.
Okay, so to answer your question, Mark, the thing about the two fields, creating the third field,
Uh-huh.
the determination really is which two fields. So, you know, it has an impact. You know, scientifically would say is based on nearness and proximity. And however, with the new plasma science, what constitutes nearness? In other words, let's just look at the surface of the Earth and say, if I were to go from North America to Europe, and say if I can do that in 2 minutes, well, that would be, you know, pretty near. But you know, I would think that if I went from North America to, say, India, that would be pretty far. But what would happen if I went to India and that took 2 minutes? Then would I say that India is farther away than Europe? So really, it has to do with the field strength and the field focus. So it's what you give your time and attention to that dictates it. So this was one of the experiments, the way I understand it, when there was a suggestion, you know, did you want to go there? And they said, oh, you know, that thought didn't cross my mind. And as soon as they put the thought in their mind, boom, away they went. So mind is the builder, and so mind is the navigator as well. So it isn't. So this is why, if it sounds funny in my presentation today, is I say, well, you know, this is what I'm saying and this is what I'm not saying. The implication in physics, conventional physics, is that everything is so precise. And so this is reflected in our prophecies. And we say, well, you know, the prophecies have predicted. Yeah, and it's very easy to extrapolate from your position now to sometime in the future, and you know, say, well, if you continue to spend money like a drunken sailor, you will eventually be bankrupt. So unless there's some kind of change in your action, or if there's some kind of interaction from another source, then that prophecy will be fulfilled. So we are now in the process of fulfilling different kinds of prophecies. And the possibility here is that we have always misunderstood what the prophecies say. So here's one of the things that we can determine by what we understand and what we don't understand. So we don't have to be that precise. But what we do have to do is we have to trust the fact that, one, we were born. But what is frustrating, if you don't know the purpose of why you were born, so then you look at your existence through all your life and you say, like, you know, who am I? What am I? And, you know, you get all this mumbo jumbo and you don't know whom to ask. Well, the best person to ask is actually you, because the thing is that you were born. And, you know, you could say, well, you know, I wasn't really part of that process because I was not part of the decision-making process consciously. And so the only thing that you take into account is your conscious decision-making and conscious action-making process. Well, so that's the fallacy right there. So you only trust your consciousness, you don't trust your subconsciousness. And that's where the problem stems in. And if you take that thought process and now apply it to our confrontation right now with respect to our inferiority complex with respect to the universal community, we came here, which we, don't know how we came here, but we trust in that system because we came here, we're here, hello. But the thing is the way we came here would be the best available system. And that's the best available system. So therefore, if we don't understand it, they're the superior race, the universal community. But now we have a new technology, which we have a new system that not only replicates how we got here, in other words, gives us an opportunity to leave as gracefully as we got here, but there's another way, a more advanced way. And so if we are, shall we say, the perpetrators of this advanced way, then maybe we are the advanced race. And so this is not a matter of conflict to say, well, my gun is bigger than your gun. This is not a competition. It's just that our place in the universe is reserved by the plasmatic field of the creator and the plasmatic field of our soul. And so the concept of inferiority or superiority is ridiculous. There's nothing to discuss there. We're all equal.
Did you come here on coach, business, or first class?
Exactly.
Mr. Kesh is teaching us, I think he only flies first class.
Now,
That's what we're being taught.
this is so funny, okay, because that particular statement, that you just made, and for all the foreigners in this class, that is a typical American statement, right? Because who knows what going coach is? Coach is, your regular class. And then,
That's when you get a steak the size of a credit card. Actually, the guy was in business class and he said, he took a picture of it. He said the steak they served him in business class was the size of a credit card.
well, so this is a brilliant comment that you made. So we have really come to a huge problem point, if you will, because as we are creating these different classes, that's kind of based on our economic capability, and our economic capability becomes manifest based on our, shall we say, physical capability, which is also dependent on our financial capability. But once we get into the plasma science, you didn't need a credit card to get born. You were born and there was no ticket taker, and there was no, what do you call it, accountant to collect the money. But in India, that whole economy is so entrenched in this caste system, and it is almost people are prone to violence as a result of it. And so this becomes an incredible hurdle. So we need to open up these gateways of understanding so that we don't have this discrimination based on class.
Right. No question. I thought Claudia was already there, but apparently she's going to arrive next month in August, she said. So she'll be having an experience as well to share. And I was wondering if Andreas would like to add anything, if you're with us, Andreas. I know you're one of the three, I think, that are here. That's actually sounded like Jacko almost floated into the system. No problem. Anyone else would like to ask a question of Alex, or any sort of other idea you'd like to share? Okay, I wanted to play something that Dean had asked Mr. Kesh a couple of questions, which Mr. Kesh ended up beautifully, just like a beautiful weave. He just knows how to put things together. And so I wanted to play that, and it's about 20 minutes long. So we're going to close out with that when it's time. And then we'll play the final disclaimer, of course. And if you can all see it in the 439 workshop. So if someone's pulling you to go away, don't feel you have to stay. But it's about the last 20 minutes or so of the workshop. And I thought we would just share that, not so much for us, but as well as those who may listen to this creation that we're doing here in the future.
Please let me interject. I want to thank all the participants on this panel today. It's because of you that this is such a success. And I really want to thank you for the time and devotion that you're making, because this is very, very important. And when we look at the numbers on our panel, and you have to multiply that by several orders of magnitude to understand how many orders of magnitude of work do we still have to go. And so if we do this on a physical basis, it's the slowest way to go. So if we can get this plasma Peace Dome set up and stronger, well, it is set up, it needs to be stronger. And so each of us not only are part of it, but we contribute to it every single day so that the field strength of the plasma dome also increases. And so these classes, that's part of my effort. And I know Mark
all of us
is working so hard to bring this. Yes.
We're all adding the fields, and he said man is going from 0 to hero.
Yeah,
So.
well, the real point that I want to bring up is I want to wish a happy birthday to the Canadians, July the 1st, and a happy birthday to the Americans, July the 4th, and a happy birthday to the Peace Initiative and the Kesh Foundation, July the 5th, because that will be the day that we eliminate the nuclear threat. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope to see you next week.
Great, thank you all. Anything else anyone would like to add? Andreas, if you'd like to add anything, we re-invite you. Maybe he's just being a little shy or doesn't want to share something right now, which is fine. Anyone else have a thought or a comment they'd like to make? As I said, I'm going to play the part of the Jacko.
Yes, what I wanted to add is what I felt very strongly is the energy I received, especially in the system. I gave it further. What I don't need, I give to the other ones. And this is what I felt is the possibility to give to Earth, to humanity. And also what for me was very important in the end, always say thank you.
Right, I know he said that about food as well, to thank the creator, but yes, we need to mature to the point, he said, of raising the soul of humanity, raising the soul of the earth, and raising the soul of the universe. And not just our individual town, neighborhood, you know, and so on and so forth. So we have some maturing, I think, to do. Stefania.
Yeah, no, I just want to say that, yeah, I agree with what Jacko just said, but also it felt like this, you know, when you say raise the elevated the planet, it's also really fat in the machine, like Jaco said, very easy to do, and that is already done. Is already done. So we're already erased, my feelings as well is that we just tipping the surface of a big iceberg. So it really felt like what we've been learning up to now was just nothing in what is gonna come next. Like really, I think now, from this system now, we really understand fully capability of this technology, or actually the capability of what we are. So this is just the beginning of the tip of iceberg of what to expect to us, in the sense that the guns and what we're doing up to now were just like playing with very small things, and now what's going to happen next with the system is the full. We understand now the full picture, or the full power, or the full potential that we have inside us and that we have around us. This is what I wanted to say. We just basically just starting. We're like for example, it's like if before we were a chicken in the eggs. No, yeah, we were still in the egg, and just now we're about to come out of the egg. Something like that.
Good, very good. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Really realizing our grace and beauty to serve the others. This is the key. This is the real key, I think, is service to the others. Okay, anyone else want to add anything else? Thank you for this creation today, each and every one of you. You've added field strength of a certain size and shape and strength and brightness. And again, I can't see it with the physicality, but we know it's been created, not only for us that are here, but also for those who may listen to this in the future. So again, we've all had a part in this.
The party has started already.
Yes, and it's not going to be one or two anymore coming to the party. You're going to see the sky loaded, I think, with people coming back, citizens of the universe coming back for the party. Again, Mr. Kesh is probably, he just wants to share so much, but he can't, he has to do it gradually and step by step, the way he's doing it, at least so far, until it really opens up and things start to become licensed. And the television, we have a prominent role on the television and so on and so forth, because that's what it's going to take for a lot of people. And I don't know exactly how it will go. He said a lot depends on what the governments are going to do, but we're going to continue regardless of what they do. If they get on board sooner, things happen fast. It's going to happen anyway. So all they're doing is just dragging the feet. They're coming in one way or another. Okay, why don't I play this? And again, it's just the end. I say just, it's the end of this. This is at 2:33. The workshop ends at 3 hours. So it's about 27 minutes, and then I'll play the final disclaimer. But Dean asked a couple of questions here, which I thought Mr. Kesh beautifully tied together and shared with us more understanding. So let's see if it'll start here. No, okay, so we just double check it.
Take the screen.
Okay, thank you.